You're listening to Strange by Nature, your guide to the strange, weird, unbelievable, and improbable wonders of the natural world.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here today. I am Kirk Mona, and I am joined today by Rachel Ginza and Victoria Thompson. We are all professional naturalists who together have scoured the world for weird and wonderful wonders just to please your mammalian brain's desire for novelty. Isn't that nice? Let's do this.
All right, welcome back to the show, everyone. Victoria,
Hi.
Good to be here.
Hey, I'm here. Good to be
What
here.
a time to be
Hey,
here.
Victoria.
I really hope that I'm beating you to this particular topic, Kirk. It's actually really timely for me.
Okay.
So a few weeks ago, I did what amounted to a PSA about ticks.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
did. Yeah. I'm sure people really appreciated and hated
yeah,
that.
and well, it's very funny because I've also been very sure to check after being in the woods. But the other day, that day being yesterday, I
Okay.
did find a small tick embedded in my knee.
Oh, no.
So that was fun. And it bitten into me, but it was definitely less than like 12 hours, but still.
Like a very small tick?
It was pretty small. I thought it was like I have a lot of mosquito bite scabs, so I thought it was one of those or like a freckle. It was not. So y'all, you can never be too cautious.
Okay.
Right.
So with that in mind, let's
It's
talk about
true.
what could be the worst thing that could possibly happen to your fun-loving host, Rachel. But probably not, but we're going to be a little dark this episode. Let's see what happens. Not Lyme disease.
Lyme disease?
Okay.
This is the worst thing that I could think of happening to me.
Oh.
Oh.
I'm going to
think-
have to take this off my list.
Yeah, you are. You said it, and I was like, and then I got bit, and I'm like, I have to do this first. So imagine
I'm pretty sure I know what you're
if you
talking
will,
about. We'll see.
you or me, you've been bitten by a tick. You
Mm-hmm.
do what you're supposed to do. You use a fine set of tweezers. You get the head and everything out. You wash it out with soap and water. Wash your hands, and you dispose of the tick. You don't need to save it after you do anything like that because there's a whole thing about it. But it was really small, and it looked different from the dog tick that I talked about last week or a few weeks ago. But you're probably fine, right? Probably. Just keep an eye on it. So you keep an eye on the bite, but you notice that anytime, after like a few days to a few weeks, you notice that anytime you drink milk or you eat cheese,
Yep.
you start to get a bit itchy. Maybe it's a little hard to breathe.
Oh, no. This is so bad, Rachel.
I know.
This is my worst nightmare, I think.
Honestly, right now, this is mine. So you
making-
try having a hamburger and the same thing happens, but like none of these symptoms have happened to you before. You've had hamburgers before and it's been no problem. Like, and it doesn't seem to affect you when you eat like chicken or fish. So you don't really know what's going on. Well, what's happening is you have developed an allergic reaction to red meat and mammal products.
Meat
this
allergy.
is called the
Awful.
alpha-gal.
Meat
Yes, it's a meat allergy.
Alpha gal, yeah. Meat allergy is my nightmare. I eat a lot of red meat and milk products.
You drink more milk than
Give me
any other adult human I know, other than like my brother.
This is true. I just so listeners understand, I personally go through about 3 gallons of milk a week.
What? Wow. That's a lot of milk.
There's so much milk.
Propping up the dairy industry in this country, Kirk.
You know, it's my Scandinavian heritage. My body produces a lot of lactase. I have no issues
Good for
with
you.
that.
It's
Probably not the healthiest thing to do, but I do love a good glass of milk.
Sometimes it just hits right, you know?
Sure does.
I don't eat
So
a lot of meat at all, particularly beef, but I do eat a lot of dairy products. Not as much milk as you, but quite a bit of cheese, yogurt, milk too, but not not 3 gallons a week.
Ice cream, cheese.
I love a good
Oh,
cheese.
So good.
Ice cream.
So Rachel,
Yeah.
tell us
Cheese
about
gets
this.
me every time.
Why does this happen? Or how does this happen?
So I could tell you a little bit. Great question. We're still finding that out of why this is happening. To the best of our knowledge, is that when the tick is biting, and this is a particular tick that carries this, it is the Lone Star tick, although I think it's been starting to be found with other particular ticks.
We've totally lost
species
you,
as well,
Rachel.
but mostly it's just in the Lone Star tick. The tick bites. That's okay. I kept going. I kind of figured you lost me.
Yep. Okay. Yep. So we heard you come in saying the Lone Star tick
Cool.
just a couple sentences ago.
Yeah. All right. So the Lone Star tick, it bites you, and while it is bitten into you, when a tick bites or anything bites into a person or a host or any sort of thing like that, it's going to transfer some saliva, some of itself into the host, right? That's not something that can really be helped. Like if we bite something, we're transferring saliva into that space as well. Like that's just something that
Absolutely.
happens.
Yeah.
That's what makes the mosquito bite itch.
What happens is exactly. Yeah. Oh, now I'm going to think about mosquito bites. Okay. So what ends up happening is in that saliva, there is a sugar molecule that gets transferred into the host from this tick. And this sugar molecule is called alpha-gal. Now, alpha-gal is a type of sugar that is commonly found in pretty much all mammalian products. So it is something that is in red meat, it's in gelatin, it's in any sort of dairy product. Anything that comes from a mammal-based product, like lamb, venison, any of that, is going to have alpha-gal in it. When the tick transfers that alpha-gal molecule into the host, sometimes what can happen is it can trigger an immune response from the host. And when the human body especially finds something that it shouldn't be there, like it starts an immune response to something, it's going to continue that response when it gets introduced later.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because, immune systems and allergic reactions are weird, and that's just kind of how that works. So when...
It's an imperfect system, to be sure.
Yeah. I mean, for example, I'm allergic to birch, and that makes me react to apples, which I've been eating since I was 3.
Uh-huh.
So come on. But only during certain times of the year, immune systems, wild. So pretty much going back on topic is what ends up happening is because it triggers that immune system response is later when you do have some sort of meat product like a hamburger or a cheeseburger or ice cream, or maybe you're a fan of Jell-O for some reason.
Getting hungry now.
I don't like Jell-O. Anyway, now it can cause anywhere from a mild reaction to an anaphylactic reaction. An anaphylactic is a very severe reaction to any sort of it's a severe allergic reaction. It causes hives, and it also causes the swelling of the mouth and or throat, and it makes you have trouble breathing at all. Very,
it's
very
an anaphylactic
serious
reaction.
Yikes.
Now,
exactly, yeah. That's life-threatening.
It is life-threatening, yeah. It's not good. Some people don't really notice, and what's really fascinating is some people who have this reaction to alpha-gal or have developed a reaction have never had any sort of allergies before that period of time, which is wild to me. But it does become a permanent allergy. It's not something that we can treat other than, hey, I guess you're going to have to look at all the products that you are going to consume from now on. Because you're now allergic to red meat.
But you can still eat chicken, turkey,
And dairy, yeah.
Yeah.
duck.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can still eat chicken. You can still eat pork. Anything that isn't a mammal.
No.
No, you can still eat.
You can't eat
Oh,
any
right,
mammals.
you can't eat pork.
You can't eat any mammals.
You're
so
right. I
pork is
forgot
out.
that I forgot that pork was a mammal for a second.
Except for, as Victoria pointed out, apparently primates. So you could be a cannibal and be okay.
Or eat monkeys, I suppose.
Maybe
That's
maybe
awful.
you
Yeah.
maybe you don't do that. Yeah. So
We're not
you can have
recommending
chicken,
that.
You can
We're
have
just saying it would be
turkey,
possible.
You can have
Yeah.
fish,
Mm-hmm.
Ugh,
which I know Kirk doesn't love.
awful. Don't get me started.
I could probably live with that, but I would be sad because I do love a good hamburger.
Yep.
So unfortunately, yeah, that's kind of all I've got for you. It's truly nothing that can be done other than to avoid the products. Prevention is the best strategy. Check yourselves before you wreck yourselves, folks.
Yeah.
There you go.
They're coming north.
I
Ugh.
know. Yeah. But I got bit by a tick, even though I check every single time, and now I get to watch and see what might happen. It'll be fun.
That's an uplifting story.
Yeah.
Thanks. So my sources this week were the Mayo Clinic and the CDC, and then Healthline had a really good article as well about alpha gal and Lone Star ticks and such. So.
That is a story that I particularly hope none of our listeners ever have a firsthand experience with.
I agree. All right. Well, with that, we're going to take a quick break. And when we return, it'll be Victoria.
Hey, everybody. Before we get back to the show, more listener comments coming in. Someone we've heard from before, one of our Brazilian listeners, the human salamander, he wrote in, and I'm sure you guys remember him writing in before, and we talked about Brazil. Rachel talked about the stepping on the snakes.
This. Yes.
Yeah, and he wrote in and said, hey, it is I, a Brazilian listener, which apparently he trademarked. I've actually only seen snakes in the wild like maybe 2 times, but I do live in the southernmost state here, so it's quite a bit colder usually. What I've seen is plenty of alligators. I've only seen them in rural areas, but recently there was news of an alligator just swimming around the state capitol during the recent floods. He didn't get to see it, I guess the floods because of the flooding, but he really wanted to. So that is pretty wild. An alligator just swimming around the state capitol would be quite something to see, but I guess he has not run into one of those snakes you were talking about, which I think, from what I understand, is a good thing.
Yeah.
So congratulations.
It is generally a good thing. Yeah.
Fun. Well, we love when you guys write in. Just want to share that he also replied in that same episode comments on the Podbean app and said that you can actually find video footage of
That's the comment I saw. Yeah.
Yeah, of the snakes, the guy who was stepping in and trying to see what would make the snakes bite him. So if you want to see video of that,
behavioral
you can actually
science at its best. Thank you for that. That was a really cool video to watch.
Yeah, very cool. So if you want to leave us comments, email us or shoot us a message on the Podbean app. We appreciate it. But let's get back to the show.
Hey, we're back. So part of hosting this podcast is that each of us has our own sources to keep up with science news that might yield some delightfully weird topics to share with you, our devoted listeners. I tend to let these pile up as open tabs in my mobile browser, and then periodically I will note them down in the spreadsheet where I keep track of these things.
Same here, Victoria. Same here.
So yeah, there's your
I have it on my computer and on my mobile device. Yeah. It's so bad.
That's your insight into our process, in case anyone was wondering. So I was just doing a periodic clear out of the browser tabs, and I came across a New York Times article that I had bookmarked from a couple months ago, which is about a specific population of dice snakes, which is that's a Eurasian snake species. And on this one island,
Okay.
on a lake in North Macedonia, it's not an island on a lake on an island on a lake, just an island on a lake.
It's not a recursive island. Okay. Nice
the one.
callback.
Okay.
there.
Yeah. So these dice snakes, this particular population has developed an elaborate method of feigning death in order to try to escape their predators, which on this island are only birds. Other locations, they're eaten by all other kinds of predators, but there are only birds to eat them on this island. It's kind of a cool and disgusting thing at the same time. So if they're attacked and they're unable to immediately escape, many of these snakes will put on this elaborate show, very dramatic. First, they'll kind of writhe around, flop. They'll poop on themselves.
Sure.
The poop is mixed with musk, and so it's extra stinky.
Gross.
Yeah.
Usually is for
I'm
snakes.
just thinking about that and just like, it's so I'm viscerally like smelling it.
Yeah. And then they fall down limp with their mouth open, and some even, for an extra, touch of reality, ooze blood from their mouths, which is chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then as soon as they see an opportunity, they try to make an escape as soon as the predator seems distracted or whatever.
Right.
So this got me curious. Obviously, this is one example. Most people know about opossums playing dead. But how many animals actually use this as a strategy to escape predators? And it turns out the answer is a lot. More than I can actually talk
We've
about.
At least covered one of them.
It's not even the only snake that does.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's more than I can talk about in one episode, but I thought it would be fun to pull a few extra weird highlights out. So first of all, in science world, playing dead is known as tonic immobility. And it's a different behavior than freezing, which is also something that you see. So if you think of freezing, you think of like the deer in the headlights. You see the deer sees the predator, or the car in this case, and freezes in the hopes that the predator will not see them. This is not that. So tonic immobility usually occurs after
freezes right in front of your car.
Yeah. So tonic immobility happens when either the predator has already noticed or has already caught the prey animal. And usually animals that have this have a reduced heart and breathing rate when they're in this state. And they will change posture in some way that mimics death. And, that can vary depending on what type of animal it is. And they frequently ooze smelly substances. And
lovely.
This can be really effective
Very fair.
because some types of predators are only really interested in moving prey. And there's actually an instinctive avoidance of, foul-smelling corpses as a evolutionary survival strategy.
For very solid reasons.
Yeah.
That is very fair. I wouldn't go near it either.
So true. Of course, I talked about opossums way back in episode 43. So if you want the full rundown on how they play possum, you can go check out that episode. One thing to note with opossums is that it is an involuntary reflex for them. So when they're faced with extreme danger, they'll just go into this state. It's sort of like almost like extreme shock. They're not dead, but in some sense, they're not playing. Actually, they don't have any control over it. So some animals are more similar to opossums in that way, where the feigned death is involuntary, and some it's a more deliberate action, and they're looking for their first chance to escape. So rabbits and various other mammals, such as guinea pigs and gerbils, would do this, especially if you put them on their back. And you can see all kinds of videos on the internet of people doing this to their rabbits. I think it was thought for a long time that this was calming for the rabbits. And now some people think it might actually be stressful, but it seems like the jury may be out a little bit. Kind of hard to tell.
Okay.
Sharks also do this if flipped onto their backs. Orcas will sometimes take advantage of this by ramming sharks to temporarily stun them and then actually flipping them over and kind of immobilizing them, and then they can eat them. Orcas are so badass.
Oh.
That's totally rad.
Every time we hear more about orcas, just another thing gets added to the list of They are little murder dolphins. They are large murder dolphins.
Yeah, nothing little about them. Yeah.
They're quite large. So tonic immobility is also very common in frogs and toads. Lots of species do this. Also found in some snakes and lizards. Snakes, as we've already mentioned. In our neck of the woods, of course, the hognose snake.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Hoping you'd mention that one.
Yes.
They're so cute, though.
They're so cute. They're really little, especially the males. And they'll flop over on their back and writhe around and eventually lie still with their mouth open and their tongue hanging out. They're just like, don't eat me. Dead.
I'm dead. You don't want to eat me. I'm already dead.
Exactly.
That's a trap.
One of the weirdest ones that I found is that you can actually induce tonic immobility in a chicken by holding it down with its beak next to the ground, and then you can draw a line extending from the tip of its beak just straight out in front, or like put a stick in front. It could be dirt, chalk, whatever. And the chicken will stay immobilized, just staring at the line for up to 30 minutes. Yep. But if you wipe away the line or move the stick or whatever, it'll just snap out of it. It's so weird. You can watch videos.
You're like, online. What is going on evolutionarily in a chicken's brain that makes that?
That was my question too.
It's so bizarre.
And I could not find a good answer. My theory, my hypothesis is that it's because it resembles a snake.
Oh, interesting.
But that's just me. That's just what
we see a thing
I came up with.
Yeah, being that we talked on the show, I'm a federally licensed bird bander. And one of the things we see in bird banding is that after we have banded a bird, if you place it upside down on someone's hand to be released, it will also often go into sort of that tonic state where it just, you're not touching it, it's just sitting in your hand and it just stays there.
Yeah.
And sometimes it will not move until you roll it over and then it, boom, just takes off and flies away.
Yeah.
Which is one of the strangest things. And I've often heard described that they've never been on their back before. And so they find that confusing. But I don't know if that's quite the explanation.
It sounds like tonic immobility. For a lot of animals, flipping over onto their back is what kind of triggers it. It seems like.
Interestingly, it doesn't work for nuthatches. And nuthatches feed by going headfirst down trees. That's so true. They're quite frequently upside down, so that will not work with a nuthatch.
So fascinating.
The more you know.
So, also apparently happens in lots of other birds besides chickens, but it's also a very common strategy among arthropods, so insects, arachnids, animals like that.
Interesting.
With parasitic wasps, a lot of parasitic wasps will do this. Apparently, if you tap their antennae rapidly or their abdomen, a lot of times, like who would be tapping a wasp's abdomen, but
that's not happening on my clock. Yeah.
I mean, it's a parasitic wasp, so it's not going to sting you, right? But
sure.
I mean, I kind of want to try it.
You go for it, Rachel, and you report back to us.
Let us know how that works out.
You can.
Will do.
Publish a case study.
Yes.
Well, so far we've been talking about tonic immobility as a strategy for avoiding being eaten. And that is certainly how it's most commonly used, but there are actually a few animals that use it for other reasons. So, there's some fish. There are a few species of cichlid fish, which is like a type of fish.
That
live in lakes in Central Africa that use playing
Lake
dead.
Victoria.
Yeah, for example. They use playing dead as a predatory strategy. So they will drop to the bottom of the lake and lie on their side, looking like a dead fish. And then actually their color pattern is kind of blotchy, sort of like rotting fish.
Oh, lovely.
So it adds to the effect. And, some unsuspecting smaller fish will come up and try to scavenge the dead fish that's lying down there. And whoops.
And wham.
Yep. They become lunch themselves.
Not so much anymore.
Taking another sharp turn is the case of the nursery web spider, Isaura mirabilis. So as with many spiders, males are often at risk of being eaten by females when they try to mate. And as with other species of nursery web spider, a hopeful male will bring along what is called a nuptial gift. It's basically a fly or other insect wrapped up in silk. Like, here, please eat this, not me. And the male will give this to the female. But in this particular species of spider, the male will keep one leg on it as he tries to mate. And if the female tries to run off with it before he mates with her, he will actually play dead while still holding on to the gift. So she's dragging along the gift and the male who's pretending to play dead. And once she stops moving, the male will come back to life and try to complete the mating.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
I mean, the determination,
some
the persistence.
Some entomologists studied this and calculated this strategy improved their odds of successful mating from 30% to 89%, which is pretty impressive.
That is something.
Yeah.
So these are just a few of the ways that feigning death is used in the animal world, which is, it seemed like a fun little weird thing to talk about. And
it's a very fun, weird thing.
That is very cool.
Thanks, Victoria.
I have to thank Wikipedia this week because they're great at compiling lists of things like this. And that's my main source. I did look at some of the source papers as well for a few of these.
Awesome. Yeah, that reminds me, kind of throwback to an episode I did back in 2022. You guys can look this up if you want to hear more about the, faking your death. I don't know if you remember this one. It was Faking Death to Avoid Sex is actually the name of the episode. And it was looking at a strategy of dragonflies, these females who actually fake death to avoid being mauled by all these males.
Yes.
I do remember that.
Now.
So there's just so many examples like that out there. Yeah, pretty wild. So we're looking for, if you want more on that topic, go check out Faking Death to Avoid Sex back in the archives.
My goodness.
Well, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, it'll be Kirk.
Welcome back, everybody. I have a hard time explaining how much I love this week's story that I am bringing you. It comes to us, not surprisingly, from one of my favorite scientific journals, the aptly named Nature.
I like that journal.
So,
I've heard of it.
Yeah. Researcher Colin Donahue was studying lizards back in 2017 with his colleagues on Pine Cay and Water Cay in the Caribbean. And these are small islands that are both part of Turks and Caicos. And if you're not super familiar with where this is an archipelago of islands north of Haiti and the Dominican Republic, and thus sort of like northeast of Cuba. So it's about 300 kilometers or 180 miles north of Haiti. And these are relatively small islands compared to some of the larger ones, especially the ones they were studying are very small. So Colin and his crew were there to study lizards, specifically anoles. And this one, the scientific name is Anolis scriptus, otherwise known as the Southern Bahamas anole, which is found in this area and then also in Southern Bahamas. So the anole itself isn't one of like the super colorful ones that you may be familiar with.
Yeah, no.
Sometimes I know when I've gone to places that have anoles, there's all these really cool, brightly colored, rainbow colored anoles running around. This is not like that at all. It's basically just gray. The males do have a yellowish wash on the underside. They also have a dewlap, which is like a flap of skin that hangs down off their chin, kind of like a fin. And the male's dewlap is kind of orangish, but again,
that's fun.
Not super flashy, right? So Colin and crew went down from Harvard to study these creatures. They captured many of them and took extensive measurements before returning home. And that might have been the end of the story if it wasn't for what happened on September 8th, 2017. On that day, Hurricane Irma blew through the Caribbean and passed over the islands that they had just studied. Now, I don't know how much our listeners know or remember about Hurricane Irma, but it was devastating. It was the most powerful hurricane of 2017. It reached Category 5 strength not once but twice as it tracked directly along all of the Caribbean islands. It was just following like the worst possible track that it could have been on. There were sustained winds of 290 kilometers an hour. That's 180 miles per hour. And these were not gusts, mind you. These are sustained winds. And while it weakened substantially when it finally made landfall with the mainland, the storm itself eventually reached all the way to Missouri before sort of blowing itself out. This was a big big hurricane. The damage has been described as catastrophic. At least 134 people were confirmed killed by the storm. Monetary damages were estimated at over $77 billion US. It was the largest hurricane recorded in the Atlantic until Hurricane Dorian surpassed it just 2 years later. Yay, global warming. They're getting bigger and bigger. But this was a biggie. So having the hurricane, though, pass over the research area that Colin and his crew had literally just finished surveying actually provided an amazing opportunity to look at the survival rates of anoles in hurricanes. Like this is an amazing, you're going right back, again afterwards. So let's make something good out of this bad situation. They wanted to see how many anoles had survived, or indeed if any had survived at all. Maybe this was, an event that just wiped them out from those small islands.
Especially since it was such a strong, hurricane, too.
Oh, it's a biggie, yeah. And I don't know that it was at Category 5 when it went over these particular islands, because it sort of strengthens and weakens and strengthens this weekend. As it goes over land, it weakens a little bit, gets over the warm water, it picks up, steam again. So I don't know the actual wind speeds for sure they had on that particular island, but it wasn't good. I mean, it was, when they went there, it was pretty devastated. And what they found was quite interesting. I should point out that their initial study was not a tagging and release study of individuals. They were merely gathering data on as many individuals as possible and coming up with data on individual traits, such as how much do they weigh, how long are they, how long are their toes, basically everything they could measure to get kind of a baseline on what is this species like on average.
Okay.
So when they returned, and they returned just 3 weeks after the hurricane had passed, they weren't looking for specific individuals, like I said, because they weren't tagged. They wanted to find as many members as they could of the species and find out who had survived. And there were anoles that had survived. They captured and surveyed the survivors, and they discovered that the average measurements had changed.
Well, okay.
Oh.
Now, to be clear, they were not saying that the storm had actually changed the individuals. That's that's not how evolution works.
Right.
But they were saying that clearly the hurricane passing through had acted as an evolutionary pressure, selecting for those individuals that had somehow been able to survive a hurricane with potentially up to 180 mile per hour sustained winds. So this was definitely a big selection event.
Yeah.
So what changed? The surviving anoles had, on average, after the storm, bigger toe pads, longer forelimbs, and shorter hind limbs as compared to the averages from before the hurricane passed.
Huh.
They were just holding on for all they were worth.
Well, that would be the theory, right? That they were the ones that were able to hold on like that, or the hypothesis,
right.
I should say, is that the ones who were able to hold on were the ones who were able to survive, and the rest literally just got blown away out to sea or something, right? So this would seem to be clear real-time evidence of a hurricane acting as an evolutionary natural selection method with before and after data. And that in of itself is super cool.
Right.
Very, very cool. They were able to collect this data.
I feel like there's a
but it's
somewhere.
not the end of the story. It's not the end of the story.
Yeah. There's something else coming.
Colin and crew decided they wanted to know if the differences they saw were actually related to the hurricane. Would those differences actually, like you were hinting at, Victoria, would it actually help them hold on better?
Right.
Right?
Right.
So, that's kind of the obvious conclusion to jump to, but you don't want to jump to conclusions in science. You want to test things out. So can anoles really even hold on to a branch in high winds? That would seem to be what's implied by the bodies of those that survived. that they had bigger toe pads and longer forelimbs. Maybe it helps you hold on to the wind, but how do we test that out? Well, quite simply, you need to recreate a hurricane.
No.
And how do you do that?
You use a wind tunnel.
By going and getting, oh, no, Rachel, you just go get a leaf blower. So these researchers gathered up 47 of the lizards and set up an experiment. They basically kind of built like a little wind tunnel, but they used a leaf blower. I guess is what they could get, and they can blow quite fast. And they basically proceeded to try to use the leaf blower to blow the anoles off branches.
I love science so much.
So they would,
Mwah. Beautiful.
This is a controlled environment. They had a branch. They would place them on there, wait till they were like, holding on really well. And then they would just slowly start to like up the speed of the air. And they were measuring wind speed as they were doing this. And what they found was that when the wind got high enough, the anoles were unable to hold on with their back legs. So they just let go. And then they began to just flap in the breeze like a flag on a pole.
No.
Or perhaps like a windsock would be a better visual. So can you imagine for hours and hours, these anoles are just like, flapping in the wind. Absolutely astounding. But they did show that they were using their strong forelimbs to hold tight to the branch. The breaking point seemed to be 108 miles an hour. That's when they could just no longer hold on. And so they just get the leaf blower, just, blow them off the branch. I will point out here, no anoles were harmed. They actually had like a soft net material behind the branch. So as soon as they're blown off, they got caught in the net and they would stop.
Okay.
No anoles were harmed in this. But it's this sort of, let's
science.
get a leaf blower and just try to blow anoles off a branch, just see what happens. But, we need to test out, like when you see something like these changes in the survivor's forelimbs, or at least the hurricanes seem to have selected for those. They're more likely to survive if they had those longer limbs and the bigger toe pads. Is that because they could hold on? And it shows that at least up to 108 miles an hour, yeah, they could. Which may mean that the winds on that island were not, the 180, or there's maybe other methods they can use to survive as well. That may not be, they don't just hold on, they may be hunkering down.
Or like they might have been in a slightly sheltered
Exactly,
location
yeah.
Whatever.
If you have 180 mile an hour winds, that doesn't mean that like it's 180 miles at every level above the ground or on the backside of a tree, things like that. So that is important to note. So this is amazing.
So
I think it's fascinating the whole thing with a leaf blower is hilarious.
So
but also just this idea that hurricanes are a selection pressure, and now the genes that were selected for by the hurricane will spread and help these little critters be more resistant to what nature throws at them in the future. And with the increase in severe weather due to global warming, we can just hope that they will keep holding on.
Oh,
which is pretty awesome.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Man, I love science.
That was my little scientific
little
story for
anoles.
today. I just picturing the little anole like holding onto the branch, going like a flapping like a little windsock is. I need to see a cartoon of that. I found some of my information, a couple of different spots. One is a website called Anole Annals, and then some general information on Wikipedia.
Oh no!
But then the actual Nature article itself is called Hurricane-Induced Selection on the Morphology of an Island Lizard.
That's so cool.
But y'all, that's what we got this week.
Yeah. Oh man, I love science. I love nature.
All right.
This is so cool.
Leaf blower.
Awesome.
Thanks, Kirk.
Awesome. Everybody have a good
Have
night.
a good night.
Yep.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Thanks everyone for listening to today's show. Be sure to subscribe. New episodes drop every Wednesday, and we love sharing this strange world with all of our listeners. If you would be so kind as to leave us a 5-star review, that would be great. It lets other lovers of the strange discover the show. You can reach out to us on social media by searching for Strange by Nature Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can send us an email as well. Our address is contact@strangebynaturepodcast.com. If you want more information about the show, you can also check out our website, which is strangebynaturepodcast.com. Until next week, get outside, stay curious, and embrace the strange.